Hey guys, JamesMCD Reviews here, doing a new type of video today. Today we're going to be taking a look at, not a movie, but a video game. Yep, that's right, this is a gaming channel now, I'm the new IGN. Today we're going to be taking a look at Spongebob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. For the uninitiated, this is the 2020 remastering of the cult classic video game Spongebob Battle for Bikini Bottom, a 3D platformer collectathon developed by Heavy Iron Studios and released by THQ in 2003. In the game, one of Plankton's schemes to steal the Krabby Patty formula backfires as he releases an army of robots into Bikini Bottom. Now you have to play as SpongeBob, Patrick, and Sandy, traversing your way through the open sandbox of Bikini Bottom, bashing enemies and collecting shiny objects and golden spatulas in order to defeat Plankton and save the city. I loved this game as a kid. I had the GameCube and the PS2 versions. I played them any chance I got, and it was just a blast. I had so much fun. Even going back and playing them as an adult, it's still so entertaining to me. And I was surprised to find out I wasn't alone with this. Over the years, the game has gained a cult status online, particularly in the speedrunning community. And just about everyone who has played it marks it as one of the best licensed games of all time. So much so that campaigns for a remastered version, or a sequel, were circulating the internet as far back as 2015. And 5 years later, our prayers would be answered. THQ Nordic, along with developer Purple Lamp Studios, announced Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, which, as the title suggests, is a fully remastered version of the original game. Yes, not a port, but a brand new game built from the ground up. And even though Heavy Iron weren't involved in the making of this game, the guys at Purple Lamp didn't plan on half-assing this project. They went so far as to get big names in the Battle for Bikini Bottom fandom to offer suggestions and criticisms on how to make the game as faithful as possible. And now that the game is released, did their efforts pay off? Well, let's find out. Alright, let's do this. God damn it! Alright, so I just got off the phone with the guys at Purple Lamp and they sent me the real game this time, so let's finally get started. Now, I'm not going to waste much time talking about the story or the main goals because they're basically the same as the original. You start off in the main hub world of Bikini Bottom, which branches off into 9 other open areas. You platform through those areas, collecting shiny objects and golden spatulas as your main form of currency. Golden spatulas can be used to unlock new areas in the hub, and shiny objects can be used to open clamshell gates and can be traded to Mr. Krabs for more spatulas. We're also tasked with collecting Patrick's lost socks. For every 10 of those, we get yet another golden spatula. In between exploring new areas, you are treated to a robot boss of Sandy, Patrick, and finally Spongebob. Beating the first 2 unlocks the rest of the hub world, as well as some new areas of the game, while beating the last boss wins you the game. So gameplay-wise, I'm glad that they didn't try to stray too far from the original. In terms of characters, you have 3 that you can use throughout the game: Spongebob, Patrick, and Sandy. The catch with the other 2 is that they're only playable in certain areas, and neither of them can enter the main hub world. Each character has a diverse range of abilities useful for solving puzzles and platforming. Spongebob has a close-range combat attack, as well as an upward and downward bash attack. He can wall jump, and throughout the game you'll unlock 2 new powers, the Bubble Bowl and the Cruise Bubble. Patrick has the same combat attacks, but can also pick up and throw objects to hit buttons that are out of range. He can also use his downward bash to stun certain enemies and throw them. Sandy is by far the coolest. On top of using her karate, she can also glide across big gaps using her lasso. She can also swing across floating Texas emblems and use her lasso in combat. Each character has some sort of use, and no character is more important than the other, even though SpongeBob is the one we use the most, but whatever. I'm glad that we were able to keep all the fun abilities each character is known for, but unfortunately this is where we run into one of our first problems with the game: the controls. The controls are all over the place. The actual movement is fine, it's very fluent and fast, and as well as the combat controls. but things like the jump can be very janky at times. Because of how floaty everything is, you'll find yourself overshooting platforms a lot, so you have to be very careful. Sandy's swinging move also caught me off guard the first time I used it, because while in the original you just had to press the button once to hold it, in this you actually have to hold the button, which I kept messing up on. The cruise bubble is also quite broken as well. Steering the damn thing is difficult on its own, but then when you get into areas like the kelp forest where you have to navigate blindly between obstacles, it becomes really frustrating. Especially when even the slightest drift to the side counts as hitting an object. Something else that can be a pain during gameplay is the camera. The manual camera controls are pretty good, but oftentimes when you're navigating through the levels, especially in tight spaces, you'll find the camera getting caught on different objects and walls and things like that. Keeping with the gameplay aspects, let's talk about some of the enemies that you'll encounter. Each one keeps their base design from the original game, and they do look a lot better. Each one has a different attack that requires them to be taken out in various ways. Something cool that they did for this remaster is for the robots that have projectile attacks like Tartar and Chuck, they give you like a red circle indicator for where the projectile is going to land. Unfortunately, this counts for fuck all because you'll still end up getting hit accidentally. The tartar bot is the most unforgiving when it comes to this because the tartar sauce puddle stays there for like a solid 5 seconds, and when you're in a grassy area like Jellyfish Fields, they're so easily hidden and you're almost always going to step in one. So yeah, the gameplay mechanics are a bit of a mixed bag, but the one thing that makes this game worth the price is its presentation. The visuals in this game are stunning. Even with some of the more frustrating gameplay elements, one thing I can say is, at least I won't get tired of looking at it. The graphics are so crisp and polished. Each of the levels have their own distinct look. The textures, the lighting, everything looks so beautiful while still fitting into the look of the show. They've even picked some of the levels from the original that didn't look the best. Rock Bottom looked very dull and boring, and Kelp Forest was so dark you actually had to turn the brightness up on your TV to see what the hell was happening. But in Rehydrated, those issues are fixed tenfold. Rock Bottom has a very balanced look, mixing dark shadows with some of the cool neon lights, and Kelp Forest is actually bright enough to see and doesn't look as dull as it did. The game ran really smoothly, and I didn't encounter any graphical glitches, which was nice. The character animation also gained a major upgrade. The lip syncing and facial expressions are much better, and some of the idle animations are just priceless. As for the audio, we have a completely remastered soundtrack, and it sounds great. Hearing these classic tunes in a higher quality is fantastic, and each one fits their respective level so well. The voice acting is the same as the original, however, so voices like Mr. Krabs and Mermaid Man are still inaccurate, which is a real shame. I mean, with all the new content they put into this game, I don't think it would have been too much of a hassle to get the correct voice actors for these characters. Speaking of the new content, let's talk about that, shall we? So one of the things the folks over at THQ Nordic promised with this rehydrated version of the game is the inclusion of some formerly cut content from the original, such as never-before-seen multiplayer mode and the addition of Robot Squidward. For those of you that don't know, Squidward was supposed to have his own robot boss in the original game before it was cut for unspecified reasons. Well, in the advertising for this game, they really played up the inclusion of Robot Squidward, which excited a lot of fans, myself included. And now that me and my girlfriend have played through the multiplayer mode, I will admit I feel kinda ripped off. This multiplayer is by far the worst part of the game. I mean, granted, the inclusion of new playable characters such as Squidward, Mr. Krabs, and even Gary is pretty funny, but this is where the problems start. First of all, these characters do not say anything. And this is why using the audio from the original game was not the best choice in my opinion. If you're gonna have these characters playable, why make them silent? Another thing, none of these characters have any difference in terms of playability. I mean, sure, Squidward and Plankton can shoot projectiles, but every other character plays pretty much the same. In fact, to a fault. Patrick's throwing and Sandy's lasso are not available in this mode. There's literally no benefit in playing as any other character. Then we get onto the mode itself, and there really isn't anything special about this gameplay-wise. It's just you and your friend moving between islands, face-tanking waves of robot enemies. That's it. It's very tedious, very boring, there's no real consequence if you die, there's no real reward if you win. It's just nothing. It also doesn't really look the best. The only visually interesting part of this mode are the different islands, but even then, a lot of them look very similar. I mean, yeah, it's kinda neat that they put little Easter eggs that reference some of the content from the original, such as the Candy Dream and the robot Spongebob muscle arms, but the rest just looks really plain with little to no obstacles in the middle of a blue void. But I know what you're thinking. Aren't you forgetting about Robot Squidward? Well, so did the game. I am not even kidding. There is no purpose for Robot Squidward to be here. With the opening cutscene at the beginning of the level, you think he's gonna play a bigger role. Maybe you have to interact with him to progress through the stages, but nope. He just shows up, stays next to the island, while hordes of robots attack you. Once you reach a checkpoint, you and your partner have to stand on a button and blow up one of his tentacles. Blow up all the tentacles, and Squidward's head sinks back under the water, and you win.
Spongebob betrayed us!
This is the video game equivalent of clickbait. The way they hype this up so much in the advertising, and for this to be what we get, is utterly insulting. And I know some people who've never played the original game will probably not think anything of this, but as someone who has played the original, and for everyone else in the fandom, this is bullshit. Even Truth or Square had a better Robot Squidward fight, and that game sucked. Sorry. I'm bringing it back. So, with all this new information in place, what are my final thoughts on the game? Well, first off, I'm still so amazed that this even happened at all. For a childhood favorite of mine to garner so much attention, for it to be brought back on current generation consoles, let alone it being a licensed game, is just incredible. And I have to take my hat off to Purple Lamp. They were clearly fans of the show and of the original game, and they wanted to make it as faithful as possible. That being said, there were definitely some elements that fell flat. While the graphics are beautiful, the audio, more specifically the voice acting, seemed kinda lazily cobbled together. While the gameplay is virtually unchanged, the controls and camera make it very frustrating. The game doesn't offer any real challenges, and the few that it does just feel more artificial and just an excuse to pad out gameplay. I didn't even mention things like the rolling ballroom challenge or the ludicrous amount of shiny objects you need for the Mr. Krabs missions. And the multiplayer mode is an absolute joke. Ultimately, I think people that have reviewed this game already perfectly summed it up in their descriptions. The original Battle for Bikini Bottom represents SpongeBob during the first 3 seasons, during its prime. Yeah, it might not look the best, but it's a classic that can be enjoyed by everyone. Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated represents everything that came after the movie. It looks prettier and can be enjoyed by some, but it's not the same show. Even though I commend the efforts of Purple Lamp and THQ Nordic, I'd still suggest anyone who hasn't played the original just play that instead. So, going to my ranking, for the first ever video game I've reviewed on this channel, I'm giving SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated a 3.5 out of 5. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I haven't ever reviewed a video game on this channel before, so hopefully I did a good job and hopefully you found this informative. I do have another video game related video that I want to do. It's not a review, but it is kind of a bit of a retrospective or a look back type of thing. So be on the lookout for that coming very soon. And until then, let me know down in the comments what you thought of Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, if you've played it. Do you have plans on playing it? Have you played the original? What did you think of that? And yeah, apart from that, let me know down in the comments if I should review any other video games or if there's any other games that you want me to take a look at, because this was pretty cool. I'd be excited to do this again. But yeah, apart from that, be sure to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell so you can stay up to date on what I'm posting. Follow me on all my social media, subscribe to my main channel. Everything you need to know will be in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you later.